All right, Mech 110, Intro to CAD CAM. What did we learn today? Well, I had you guys for homework make a model on your own, and then I told you we were going to bring it in. So I'm going to show that process again, how to set up the whole part, bringing it in from scratch. I go to Mastercam, and I go to Open. Then I change down here in the lower corner. Look at me too, okay? I'm going to change the files of type to, in this case, we were looking for a Parasolid file. So I changed it to Parasolid XT, and then I find where I saved it, which in this case was on the desktop, and the file one of the students brought in as a Parasolid, I saved it, was called Mech 110 Drawing 4. All right, so I highlight that file and open it in Mastercam, and it brings it in real fast, just like this, as a dumb solid. I turn off F9, and I see that I have this dumb solid. What I did next was I opened up the Levels Manager by left-clicking on it. Right now I only have one dumb solid in Mastercam, so I'm going to name level number 1 Solid, S-O-L-I-D. Then I'm going to do a new numbered level 5, I'm going to call wireframe. And I'm going to use Mastercam to grab this model and put a curve on all edges of it. That will be the wireframe that I need to click on my geometry for my toolpaths. And then I'll have them separated here too, so I don't have to see this big black solid anymore. I'll only have my wireframe. So I make sure that wireframe is the active level by making it green, and then I green check. Then I'm going to change to another color so that it comes up like purple 172 for my edges. Now I create, up there on top, create, curve on all edges, and I activate up here this blue box with a green check in it called the solid selector. And I uncheck faces and leave it on select body. Then I just click the model anywhere, and you can see Mastercam highlights all those edges. Not surfaces, just edges. So it makes lines and arcs and things like that. It doesn't make surfaces. When I finish selecting, you can see it lit all the edges up, and I'm just going to go ahead and green check now because it put nice purple edges all over my black model. I go back to my Levels Manager and I turn off solid. All right, now I want to make sure you guys understand that you can query the model. I'm going to look in my front view and I'm going to see, oh yeah, Z0's on the top of the island. Good, that's where I wanted it. And I can go to my top view, turn off the WCS and go Analyze Entity Properties and start clicking on stuff. I click on that circle, it's a half inch diameter circle. I can go to my isometric view and I'll click on this line, and it'll tell me how long that line is, what angle that it's at, and all of its other data. If I want to know a distance, I can go to Analyze Distance from the top of the island to the bottom of the model. From the top of the island to the bottom of the model shows a Z change of 1.3750. Nice confirmation that we drew our model correct, because we have to make this part in reality. We need to make sure the geometry here is what we're going to get out there. All right. Now the next thing was grabbing a machine type, and I grabbed the Haas mill. And a lot of you forgot to do this time, but on the Mastercam process it says set up the tool settings tab per convention. I go to tool settings and I give myself a program number, check the top 3 and the bottom 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that that's done, I can go to stock setup. And what I did here was I choose bounding box. I've got no stock anything in here. I have to make sure it displays. So I check display, and then down here, bounding box. It lights up the model. I'm going to expand X and Y lines. It's going to draw a box to it, but I'm going to expand it 1/4 inch in each direction. And then I get these numbers here. I got nothing in Z because it doesn't recognize that. I'm going to make that 1.750 for extra thickness. I'm going to put 10 thousandths in here, and then watch, I'm going to clean up the numbers to 5, 12.75, 1.75, and 10. It's going to display, and now my setup is complete. Brought in the model, created curve on all edges, made 2 different levels, did the tool settings per convention. If I don't do that, then my tool numbers don't come out right. A lot of you saw that today. And then I did the stock setup for you. Later on, I showed you the 2 best Mastercam toolpaths that I know of for the kind of work that we did in this model. And they were called Dynamic Core and Old School Finish Outer, which is just an old contour toolpath. I called it old school because it leaves a nice finish. But Dynamic Core gets rid of all the metal you don't want as fast as possible. How did I do that? Well, I use this analogy of the ranch fence around a ranch house. We want to cut all the grass around the ranch house without hitting the ranch house. So we need to put a fence around where we want to mow, and then we want to chain the boundary of the house so that the tractor doesn't hit the house. Another good way to think about a core is an apple core. You know, an apple core is not a hole going through an apple. It's what's left after you ate all the way around it, right? So that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be leaving the core sticking up. So the geometry was picked in this thing, chaining options, and I have 2 geometry regions picked. I'm going to show you the ones that I picked. First, I picked the outer fence of the ranch. That was chain 1. Chain 2 was the inner fence of the ranch. That being done, it brings up the toolpath. And I choose Dynamic Core Mill. I pick a tool, and then I proceed to make decisions to go way faster than normal. If this were steel, I would normally go 350. I'm just going to double it to 700 for this. And I have a nice fast feed rate of 60. The cut parameters need to get set here. I made an approach distance of 0.5. And when I go into these boxes, it shows you where you're working. 7% of a 1/2 inch diameter tool is going to be 35 thousandths. The minimum tool path radius sets these little radiuses in here where it's cutting. I left 10 thousandths on the walls and nothing on the floors. Entry motion, I just made one quick little change to the radius there. I make it a little smaller than a 1/2 inch. I wanted breakthrough in this case. And then the depth with this end mill is 1.375. This is kind of an experimental thing. That might not be what I want to do. I might need to break that up into 2 things to get this part done. But I have heard that you can go 3 times the diameter of the end mill down the side of a part and save lots of time getting rid of stock you don't need. Arc filter tolerance, I made that big so that Mastercam doesn't generate a whole bunch of unnecessary lines of code. And then I proved with a back plot, we watch from the top here. This is the outer ranch fence. This is the ranch. Mastercam will pick the best way, always climb milling, to get rid of all this area. So watch carefully. The toolpath says it's going to take 21 minutes This part is in actuality 12 3/4 of an inch long, 3.5 inches wide. Pretty big part, relatively. And we watched it all this time. It's staying nice and steady because it has an even amount of stock around the outside. When it starts hitting a corner, and it will right here all the way around, it'll start deciding to stay in one area, just like that. So it picks up 10 thousandths, runs back 150 inches a minute, and then with this little 7% step over, just gets rid of that material really quickly. The end mill never buries, and only a portion of the circumference of the tool stays in contact. We can never bury the tool on these, or it will snap right off. However, you approach the part correctly, it gets rid of the metal 70% faster than the old ways we used to do it. So I'll zoom this up faster, and we'll watch it cut all that stock away, picking its lines, and trying to stay in contact with the metal as much as possible. So we did that for this one, and it went around the outside of the part, and then since we had only this left, we did another core outer to leave this island standing up. These holes are all below the surface, but we needed this to go, and I need to check my parameters. Yes, I needed -0.375 on my depth, and then I regenerate, and it gives you a funny looking little beehive thing here while it spools. I basically just copied this toolpath down though, right click, hold down, get below the arrow, and copied after. And then all I had to do was change the geometry chains. All my other settings stayed the same. Really nice, because although you've got a lot of things to take care of and click in the beginning, in the end, if you just copy it down and change the geometry, that's really fast. So let's watch this one, and then we'll be done with today's lesson. It started around, remember all this outer material is already gone, and it's only going to leave this core sticking up. Right? All right. Now I want to select all the operations and verify this toolpath. I'm going to get to my isometric view. I'm going to turn the speed way up, and right there, it faced it off. This is the core of the outer, 7% step over. Takes about 45 minutes to remove all this material with just a little bitty 1/2 inch end mill. If I had a 3/4 inch end mill, you know, I could up these times even faster. This Mastercam X7 in the new Verify shows that you left the geometry like that. Now here's the upper core. There might have been much faster ways of doing this, but the lesson was how to use this new dynamic core toolpath. And that's how it leaves it. Can you zoom in a little bit and get a kind of a better look at this part? Just walk on in. All right. So that's what we learned today. How to bring in a model from outside, how to create curve on all edges, and much more in detail about using core roughing and old contour finish. Thank you.